What is good, everybody? With the new school year starting up, I've been reflecting quite a bit on my college experience and all the things that I wish I had known before starting college, basically. It was a time of growth. I learned a lot of lessons. Plenty of those I learned the hard way. And today I want to share some of those lessons with you, maybe some tips. I hope it's been a while. You know, this YouTube channel started when I was in college, so I think most of this advice is still relevant, but maybe it's changed a bunch. So this is not a guidebook, it's just a conversation. Let's start really with the biggest thing I learned. Procrastination is a killer. I don't know if you're like me, but in high school, I kind of coasted through it. I would put things off until the last minute. Well, I think I've shared this story before, actually, like sophomore year. I had assignments done, graded, and a history teacher called home, told my parents I was just blowing it, missing assignments, checked out. My parents just like let me have it. And then I showed him like, no, I did these assignments. They had A's. He just didn't put it in his grade book. Went the next day, showed the teacher. He didn't even apologize. He just like, oh, okay, I'll put those in. And that was that. And from that moment on, my villain arc began in terms of like, I could care less about school, right? I felt so just over all of it. The only thing I cared about were hobbies. And during those years, it was mountain biking. I was getting into like music production, like electronic music production, because that was, man, the era back then when it was like really big. And then gaming, of course, was always a hobby in the background. So school was just whatever. I coasted. I waited until the last second to do things. And that didn't work. That didn't fly once I got through the general required classes my freshman year. Freshman year, I did fine. It was easy. I went to class, had a good community. It just was simple. But sophomore year, when I started getting more classes about my major, things were a little bit tougher, and those procrastination habits did not age gracefully, and they totally hamstrung me big time. I would just sort of skip reading assignments altogether. For easy classes, I would skip certain days when I thought there was nothing important going on, and I thought I could just kind of get away with it. C's get degrees is what I was saying to myself, and before I knew it, I was getting a bunch of C minuses and D pluses without realizing that, hey, the small print in your major says for every class that is one for your major, you need a 78 or higher. And before I knew it, basically a whole year of C's meant I had to retake a bunch of classes because a 75 didn't cut it. You needed a 78. And it caught up with me big time. So the first 2 years of school were kind of the downward trajectory where I wasn't really super enjoying my major. I didn't really like it, but I knew I needed to commit and finish. So the last 3 years were brutal. I had a total attitude shift, and it took a long time to turn the boat, but it's like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to beat this just like a game. I want to conquer this boss fight. And so the last 3 years, summer semesters and going to night school along with the day classes and just grinding. Seriously, the last 2 years of school on campus, 8 a.m., I would leave campus at like 10, 15 p.m. at night. It was straight up brutal. And a lot of that was because I had 2 semesters sophomore year that I just blew it. And I didn't even realize it. And so my advice is, please don't procrastinate. Break tasks into smaller parts. Set personal deadlines. Use a planner. Use an app. I mean, I'm so old. I didn't get a smartphone until my last year of college. But now there's so many digital tools to help do this. Staying on top of your work equals less stress and more enjoyment for you. And I know for a fact, cramming doesn't work. It's not as effective as if you were to study a little bit each day. And the biggest thing, man, go to class. Even if you're bored to tears, I don't care. Go to class, take notes. And this leads me into the second thing that I had learned. Going above and beyond is really smart. Now, I realized that last year, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to graduate. But there were still a couple of classes where maybe I was sitting at a B, and I was a film major, and the school that I went to, I thought film was going to be a breeze. No, they wanted to compete with NYU, and so it was like a high-end literature degree. It was all writing. It was all term papers. Some of these classes were literally like a midterm paper that was 20 pages, and then a final that would be like 30 pages that I would have to write. And if you choked on that paper, you could completely blow the class. If you didn't get that 78, you would have to retake it. And some of those things weren't even available until the following year, which was so frustrating. I imagine it's like this now, but like when you had classes you needed to take, at my school, it was the people who had been there the longest got the first of the pick of the litter. And so it was almost impossible for anybody to get out within 4 years. Everybody I knew in my class was like a 5-year super senior. But when you have those high-end, high-stakes things and you're sitting at a B, what really matters is going the extra mile. That last year, I started going to every study session that the class had organized. I made sure in some of these bigger classes that the TAs, the people grading your paper, knew who I was. I made sure to sit in the same spot every day. I wore the same hat every single day because I knew in some of these big classes, let's say you're at a 77 and you know that TA has seen you at the study group, you know that they have seen you in class giving it your all, you're going to have a much better chance communicating with that person if you needed the extra bump to just say like, hey, I've been giving it everything. I need it for this. You want to be in that position. You want to do all the extra credit, all that stuff, because honestly, curveballs. I learned a bunch in college. Curveballs get thrown at you all the time. Life is crazy. And being prepared really helps when things get tough. And like I said, I didn't even really enjoy my major for most of the time I was there. But I know for a fact, doing that extra bit saved me on a few classes. I never had anything on the razor thin line like I just described, but I know it was so worth it. And I wish I had put in that extra effort before, because for most undergrad, depending on your school and your major and all that stuff, if you're actively making an effort and the professor knows who you are or the TA knows who you are, it makes a difference, I promise you. I learned also that if you can, build a community if possible. I kind of missed the opportunity. My freshman year, like I said, I was all into like dance music production and DJing, and that was my focus. And we started playing a lot of shows, and I didn't spend a bunch of time making friends or building a big community. And it's really important to have emotional support, study help. There's future opportunities, seeking out clubs or group projects, reaching out to classmates. There's a lot of opportunities, and many times, like your freshman year, the friends that you make are the ones that you carry through the rest of school with. So if you can try to not isolate, there is some benefit in sharing the journey with others. And the last thing I really wish I would have done, and this is not a regret, I am really happy with the route that I went, and you know, life has gone the pathway it was supposed to go. I'm not into regretting the past all that much, but researching your major is really important. There's more resources now than there was back when I went to school. You can YouTube any major and really hear great examples of what that career path looks like from real people in that space. I wish I would have researched a little bit more. I had done video production in high school and I loved it, but I didn't really realize that film has two directions: the academic, critical theory route, which is if you want to go teach or work at an NYU or something, or the production route in one of the main hub cities. Let's say you're Southern California. Case in point, a lot of the schools there have internships with the studios that get you placed in the studio system before you even graduate. So like USC, I can't remember what it was, but at the time I think you could intern on Marvel Productions, which is great because then you get into the union and you get started on your career. It's a little bit different, right? For obviously different degrees. Hindsight 2020, I would have looked at some business degrees or a couple of other things if I had just known or done some research a little bit more beforehand. And so it's important to talk to other professionals, talk to upperclassmen, talk to professors, really take time, and it's okay to change your mind. Your life is not set. Also, your life is what you make of it. And so use everything to go the direction that you want. Build on top of it, right? I may have gone to school for film, but work in marketing now. It's all communication. It all has overlap. And there were lessons learned in that major that I use every day. But it takes an attitude that's willing to just, I don't know, not let the circumstances dictate the outcome. You've got to be proactive. Also, I think going to a trade school makes a ton of sense now for a ton of degrees. So much of college now, in my opinion, depending on your major, depending on your school that you go to, it's a really expensive piece of paper. And I feel like experience is way more important for a lot of roles. Not all of them. There are obviously, like I said, certain majors and schools where it's going to make a big difference. But in many ways, it feels just sort of like another required high school diploma. And I know with what I do, I would much prefer somebody with experience over just a liberal art degree. I know there are certain professions where you've got to go down certain routes, and that makes a ton of sense. But just research and be proactive. I think those are the two biggest takeaways that I wish I was a little bit more proactive back before I was going to school. College is a journey. Stay engaged. Build that strong community. Avoid procrastination. And hey, it isn't all going to happen overnight. It's more so you just saying and making a choice like, hey, I'm going to go, I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to learn. If any of you are heading to school right now, let me know down in the comments. If any of you have finished with school and also have advice, you can, let me know down below. I'd love to hear your stories. I appreciate it. Enjoy this if it's your last week of summer or the last few weeks, and have an awesome rest of your day.